There is blind justice, and then there is trading justice, so that you can finally afford to get that laser eye surgery. Not only will people find you more attractive once you ditch those old glasses, you'll be able to see your charts better. That's what we call win-win. Speaking of winning, it's time for a little trading justice. Brought to you by tackletrading.com.
Hashtag winning. I love that, Tim. Tim, how are you today?
Doing great, Matt. Good to hear you and good to be back on a podcast. Excited to be doing this today. I know we got a lot to talk about. We've got these little audio drops now. I'm feeling all professional about this, Matt.
You know, I there we go. I'm feeling a little too professional, to be honest. I kind of like it when we're, feeling like we're back in the country, smoking a stogie, drinking a beer, and bitching about the Fed. That's when I'm at my best, right
with
there.
With AC/DC on in the background, right? Don't forget AC/DC.
Well, yeah, until Phil told me that we were going to get sued. And then I didn't want to get sued by AC/DC. That didn't sound like a win-win situation. Even though I probably would have negotiated with AC/DC. I will teach you how to control your financial future if you let us use a 30-second clip of Back in Black. That is a win-win situation right there, I'm going to tell you. Oh, producer Phil, how you doing today?
Going all right. Everything is back to normal. There was some craziness the past couple of weeks, but everything is super mellow and back in the driver's seat in getting trading justice on the road to helping as many people as possible.
Awesome. You know, Tim, I don't envy Phil over the last 2 weeks. We over there at the website Tackle Trading, we went through an update to our database and our all of that stuff. And oh, what a nightmare. Wow, what an absolute nightmare. Entreport can go to hell right now. Hopefully they get their stuff together so that we can get things going again. And it seems like things have calmed down. It seems like, we're getting back to normal a little bit, and we'll keep on bringing you guys the absolute best in financial trading and education out there in the entire history of mankind. So, Tim, kind of topic today. I've been seeing a lot in the news, and I've been seeing a lot in terms of Fed speeches. And if you'll recall back to 07 and early 08, Ben Bernanke would give a speech, and he would talk about how there's nothing to see here, how there's nothing happening at the in terms of a bubble, how we have not seen any bubbles in manufacturing or housing, or how everything seems good. I mean, it literally a month before Bear Stearns went bankrupt and gone, Ben Bernanke's given a speech about how, in the financial world, everything looks good, how evaluations look good, how leverage looks good. And then Bear Stearns, bye-bye. 3 months after that, Lehman Brothers, bye-bye. It's just, and it's tough to, when you're not accustomed to ciphering through the nonsense that we call Fed speak, which is something that I feel we are pretty good at. It's tough for the average American consumer out there to really kind of look at what's going on out there and what to trust, what information is out there. You get things saying on these talking heads, and they all say buy. Nobody says sell. I mean, how many times in the last year have you ever heard anybody say, well, I think you should sell right now, outside of us? And so it's really interesting kind of what's going on out there in the marketplace. And I wanted to talk about kind of where you see where the market is heading and why, and talk about kind of what's happening from an economic analysis perspective as well. So that's kind of the topic today. And obviously we can take this wherever we want it. Because obviously that's kind of what we do. So, sure. Tim, from an economic perspective, talk to me about what you're seeing out there from an economic perspective. Not so much from a market perspective, but from an economic perspective.
Well, I think it's a great question. I watch markets every day. I teach markets. I trade markets. I'm an investor. I have the ability and also the network to also tap into other traders like yourself and the good coaches over at Tackle Trading, Gino, Noah. So I get quite the perspective myself. And One thing I'll tell you, you said an interesting thought there about buy ratings or how many people are telling you to buy right now and how many are telling you to sell. I think there's some statistics out there, Matt, that even during market crashes, and especially like the 3 months, 6 months, year before the market crash, overwhelmingly, you'll see buy ratings from Wall Street. They just don't rate things as sell. They just don't think like that. Their job is to sell things to you as a consumer. Okay, so they're not going to go tell people to sell. They're going to tell people to buy the stuff they're trying to sell.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's one thing. Don't ever trust the talking heads in that regard. I think you've got to really have your own processes down and build your own network. Yeah. Economic data has not been good. Now, we could talk about retail sales, GDP. We could go through all the numbers, and we may go through some of the numbers, but it's just not been good. And you've seen a reaction from the U.S. dollar because of that economic data. It actually has been selling. You're seeing a double top type of pattern. It's pressing on some very major support. It could very well find that support and hold. But the economic data is a very big risk right now. And one of the biggest things for me, Matt, is the GDP number, gross domestic product, and what is happening with the actual performance in the economy. One thing you got to remember is not to trust these numbers 100% because they are coming from government sources, and government sources have complete information. And many times, Matt, you know this, they'll put out a number, then they'll come back after the event 2 months later or whatever and revise it.
Yeah.
I think very well we could have seen a negative quarter the last quarter. A lot of data I'm looking at is that.
Let's talk about that for a second, because for 2 months before that number was released, and that number was released 2 weeks ago, I was telling people that I was expecting somewhere around a 0.5 growth. That's what I personally was expecting. And the market was expecting, over 1% growth. Mm-hmm. And so it came in at 0.2%. But that's not the final number, and that's what people have to realize. In the GDP analysis, you actually have 3 GDP estimates. You have the advanced number, which is the first number, and that's probably the most important one typically, because that tells us kind of where the range is. Then you have a secondary one, and then you have the final GDP number. Tim, I'll tell you right now, I honestly believe that when it's all said and done, we're going to have a GDP data that is, and for those of you who don't know, that's gross domestic product. That's the speed of the national economy. You have basically 3 basic economic stances. You have a bull market. It's also called a boom. That's when GDP is constantly expanding 2%, 3%, 3.5%. Then you have what's called economic stagnation, and that's when GDP is hovering around 0 to 1%. Basically, your economy is stagnant. That's basically the entire Eurozone right now, including Great Britain. Their GDP data is always right between 0 and 1% because they're going through stagnation right now. And then you have a recession when GDP contracts underneath 0 for 2 consecutive quarters. And then you have what's called a depression where GDP contracts 4 straight quarters underneath 0. And so right now, from a world perspective, from a global economic perspective, you have 4 of the top 10 economies that are already in recessions where GDP has contracted underneath 0 multiple quarters in a row. And that's the likes like Russia and Japan and Brazil and so on. Then you have most of the world right now that is in stagnation, approaching the recession. The one thing that is interesting right now is the U.S. economy. The U.S. economy was kind of expanding at a tolerable pace last year, 2%, 3%. But we were coming into a strong dollar in the first quarter, and you were also coming into just a historically weaker quarter is the first quarter. And interesting enough, it came in at 0.2, which is basically in that stagnation, okay? But again, we still got more room to go. I think you're going to come in at a negative 1%. That's what I think you're going to come into, about a negative 1% for the first quarter. And the interesting thing that will happen here becomes quarter number 2, Tim, because I really don't even doubt we'll see a negative number in the first quarter. There's nothing that I currently see that leads me to any other conclusion than a revised number underneath 0. If the second quarter comes into a negative as well, Tim, that's a recession Flat out. They can sit there and say whatever they want. They can talk about whatever they want. They can play their mind tricks however they want. But at the end of the day, that is a recession. And that's been the way we have established recessions and markets for a very, very long time. And, there you go. And you know what? I wouldn't say it's probable, but I'd say there's about a 40% likelihood that the next quarter will also show a negative number as well.
By the way, if you give me buttons to push, I will push them.
Yes, you will. Yes.
I can't.
You're a damn child. You're a damn child.
One of my favorite things about teaching live, Matt, is I get my whiteboard, and I actually down in my office right now, I have a little box of dry erase markers. I probably have 20 different colors. It's one of my favorite things in the world. I swear, when I'm doing things up on a whiteboard, I'm always using every color I can think of.
Well, when I'm take it a step further, when I'm doing a 3-day training and it's live and I'm putting on a seminar, basically I have flip charts, right? And I have 4 primary colors. I got black, red, green, blue. All right. At the end of the 3 days of doing this, I always kind of look back at the flip charts, and I try to cipher myself. What the hell was I trying to say? Because you write so much just random thoughts down there, and it's quite interesting. But yeah, I like flip charts as well.
We're gonna need to get you more colors, and you'll see how creative you can get.
No, I don't need orange. I don't need pink. I'm a very basic guy. Black and red and green and blue. That's good for me.
Economic data is not strong. Let's just cut right to the chase. It's just not strong. When you really look at it, you really talk to people, we're not seeing good numbers out there. And I'm tired of the Fed coming out and saying everything's fine and everything, blah, 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 blah. It's just so monotone. I mean, it's like they're trying to put us to sleep.
Oh, that's just Fed speak. Yeah, that's just what they do. They are, the thing about the Fed that's driving me crazy is they're not traders, they're not investors, they're economists, they're theorists. And the one thing we know about most educators and teachers, Tim, is they're good in theory. They're not good in application. They're not good in practicality. They're not good in getting out there and actually doing. They are good in theory. And what the Fed is doing over the last 5 years, over the last 7 years, is atrocious. They're trying to play theory with a $17 trillion economy. They're trying to play theory with $7 trillion in people's retirement funds. They're trying to play theory, and they're just absolutely just destroying what was an efficient model. Yeah. And now it's utterly, Tim, our market is so beyond broken. It's disgusting. Now the entire marketplace, they love it when we get bad economic data. They love that. Yeah. Because they think the Fed's going to do another round of quantitative easing, or they might not raise interest rates in June. They might do it in October, or if they're not going to do it in October, they'll do it in December. And if they don't do it in December, they'll do it in March of 2016. That's a broken market. And so when I sit there and I hear the Fed come out there in these speeches say, yeah, well, we're not seeing any bubble behavior. Really? Really? You have no goddamn clue what you're talking about. And you're playing God with people's lives. And it's bullshit. And people need to realize what the hell the Fed is doing and how it impacts their everyday life, because people are going to wake up 2 years from now, Tim, and the retirements are going to be rocked. They're going to be absolutely. They'll be a victim of the largest financial crash. They'll be a victim of the largest, largest transfership of wealth in human history. And you know what they're going to blame? They're going to blame people. They're going to blame Wall Street. You know who they should blame? They should blame Congress. They should blame the government. They should blame the Fed, number one. Because it's these individuals, it's these entities that are playing God with economic theory. Okay? I got news for Janet Yellen. She's not God. She's the damn devil. Mm-hmm. That's who she is. I don't care if she looks like a nice little 80-year-old grandmother. She is the damn devil, and she is taking her theory of Keynesian economic models. She's applying it at the Fed level from an economic perspective, and she is failing. She is doing the absolute opposite of winning. Nothing she has done since she undertook office has worked. Nothing Ben Bernanke has done since he took office actually worked. The only thing they did is bubble asset prices. They have utterly destroyed the bond market. There is no such thing as a bond market to me any longer because they have destroyed it. There's no more liquidity there. Who wants to go to get a government bond when there's no liquidity? The Fed owns 38% of it anyways, and you're getting zero interest. And when interest rates rise, you're going to get slaughtered. Who wants that? Here, come buy our government debt. Yeah, we'll pay you back nothing. You know what? To hell with the Fed. And to the hell with the American consumer who won't get off their goddamn ass to actually do something about it.
Yeah, I mean, that's where I'm at right there, quite frankly. I think that's the most important thing that you've said so far, because we can sit and talk politics, and we can talk finance, and we can talk, what it is that's happening out there, and we can really stare at the reality, and we can complain about it. We can even come up with new ideas, new solutions. But those broad-based ideas and solutions, Matt, it's hard to effectuate change. But in my own life, I can control what I do. I can impact the people who listen to this podcast. I can teach my students, people who are willing to get up and do something about it. I'm happy to help them now. And it's not that I won't feel bad for the victim, right? No,
I will. They are an absolute victim. They are an absolute victim of thievery. The Fed might as well come in with guns blazing to steal my silver. Okay, that's might as well what they're going to be to the American retirement account. But here's the reality, Tim. All we can do is get the message out there. All we can do is give people an opportunity to open their eyes and see the truth of what is actually happening out there. I mean, Tim, we have put our legacy out there for this. We have put our legacy out there trying to help people impact change. And I do believe this. Okay, listen, people can complain, they can bitch, they can moan, they can point the finger. That's easy. And believe me, I can't stand the Fed. I can't stand what's happening. And I do get frustrated at times. But you know what? I'm also willing to do something about it. I'm willing to travel this amazing country and give people an opportunity. I'm willing to put, my life's work into tackle and into this podcast to give people an opportunity, to give people a chance. Because, when it comes down to it, Tim, from an economic perspective, I'm what's called a classic liberal, which I believe in community. I believe in that there's a sense of morality to our system design. I believe that every time we go shop at Walmart, we're allowing some American conglomerate corporation to outsource prices to China to horrible labor conditions. And we support that every time we support an American company that outsources to a very nasty labor condition. We support that. So I do believe in changing that and getting the message out. But at the same time, my God, Americans, get off your ass.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah, I agree.
Stop saying it's too hard. Tim, anytime I see somebody come out there and say, well, I've been involved in this for 2 weeks and it's just too hard. Really? Really? Seriously? That's what you're going to say? 2 weeks, it's too hard? My God, you need to go get on the construction site with my dad when we were 10 years old. Then you can tell me that's too hard.
Well, I mean, it goes back to a couple of things. Number one, some people like Jake Pelly, who we've had on the podcast, they go and right away they're instant successes. Other people who
why do you think somebody like a Jake Pelly, somebody like a Dean Beckett, why do you think these people catch on so much faster than some other people who don't catch on as fast?
I don't think all of it's work ethic, to be honest. I know that some people out there that aren't moving fast enough, maybe aren't putting the time in, or they're not consistent, or whatever it is. Some of it may be that they narrow their focus and they master what they want to work on. They identify how they want to trade early on. one challenge, and it's a natural thing. I mean, I understand why people go through it, but you got to give yourself patience if you're in this scenario. One challenge new traders have is they lack direction on exactly what strategies and what types of trades that they want to run to execute their business and achieve their goals. Okay, I'll give you an example, Matt. Some people jump in and they trade this, they trade that, they trade 50, 60 different strategies. They never put enough time in mastering even one basic thing. I was talking to a guy the other day in lab. He's saying, Tim, I just really can't get these ones to work. And I can't remember what it was, like a vertical credit or something like that. And I was going through all the details, and finally I just stopped and I said, well, how many of these have you done? He said, about 4.
Oh, yeah, that's it. Yep. You have enough data, just give up. It doesn't work.
I tell people, and this is what I tell. I told him this, I tell everybody this, until you've done a strategy 50 times the same way. So that means don't change the month or the strike or in the money, out of the money. I mean, somewhat the same way. You can't even judge it. You've got to get experience. Yeah.
Go back test it. Go back. Go to the Think desktop. Go to Think Back. Back test the strategy 100 times before you tell me it doesn't work. Because you know what, Tim? It works for a lot of other people. Mm-hmm. Vertical credits work for a tremendous amount of people. They're high probability trades. So what is it not working about you? Or is it that you're applying it in wrong condition? Is your timing off? Are you getting emotional about it? There's a lot of things that might be going on in that capacity that is leading it to not work, but you can't just say it doesn't work, because vertical credits are used by every professional trader out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. 100%. There's so many different layers to backtesting too. That's a whole topic we should probably do an entire podcasting on. That would be one good
subject.
Put that down.
Yeah, let's do a backtesting. We'll pull up the Think Back, and then we'll backtest a few strategies and talk about kind of the impact as we go through it. That'd be a cool one. Speaking of Jake, though, Jake came in. He invested about $30,000 in his financial education. And he wanted truly to just learn one strategy. That's all he wanted to do. And you know what? He ended up learning and mastering that one strategy, and that's all he trades. Because he's like, well, if this is working for me, why do I need straddles and strangles and verticals and condors? And why do I need 8, 9, 10 different strategies in my portfolio when that's really hard to apply in the first place? So let me just master the naked put. And that's kind of what he did. And then you have people like Dean Beckett, who his mind races so much, okay? He's constantly thinking that he needs more strategies because he loves doing it. And he's found that system that works for him. It's just, and it doesn't have to be complicated. If you can master covered calls and naked puts on a $100,000 account, Tim, you're going to have a lot of money at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the truth. Okay. Even in a down market, if you're in stock, you're going to offset your loss by selling the call options. You're going to cash flow on naked puts. Even if it's just that, if you started doing that at the age of 30 on $40,000, you have an ungodly amount of money by the time you're 50.
Well, and I'll tell you, I think age is a key thing here, but let's not say you got to be young to start trading, though. Warren Buffett made 97% of his money after the age of 60.
Yes, he did, and I agree with what you said. You're never too young, you're never too old to get going, and especially for the people 55 to 65-year-olds. Tim, people are living a long time these days. Okay, and so when 55 to 65-year-olds, do you know what the average 401k is in today for 55 to 65-year-olds? It's $78,000. $78,000. And people are like, oh my God, I can't retire. No, you can't. But if you can get your money working, you can. Even on $76,000. Let's say you just do naked puts and cover calls, Tim. Okay, you can do a 5% monthly cash flow on that.
Yeah.
That's better. That's better than what you're going to get from your pension and your Social Security.
Well, by the way, the returns are always something to talk about, and on potential ROI things you can do, cash flowing the market. But going back to one of the earlier points and kind of the conversation we started with, protection's more important than profiting. Okay, in my opinion,
it's number one rule.
You have to learn how to protect yourself when economies and markets change. Mm-hmm. Whenever I go to a convention or say like a show or a symposium or whatever it is, live class, I inevitably will. Usually these things, Matt, they have real estate and trading and investing, and they're all kind of there, different classes, different types of people. And I'll always get a real estate person to come up and kind of give me the old once over with their eyes and find my name tag and say, "Oh, stock markets, huh? Well, I'll tell you, I got a retirement account." And,
I got one of those Dilios right there. I got one of those accounts. Stock market. Yeah, I know. I've had the conversation a few times. One of those Dilies over there.
Yeah, what are those things? Yeah, I don't know. I just have my wife look at the numbers, and I just tell HR to set me up with the mixed conservative, all kinds of blah blah blah.
Yeah,
peanut butter sandwich.
I got one of those brokers that manage one of those Dilios, and I think they call it a retirement account. Yeah, one of those things. I got one of those.
Are you going foghorn leghorn on me here?
Oh no! My buddy,
I say
I got some here. Yeah, no, my buddy Bo, Bo, he's my manager out there, and we had somebody come up to us one day and be like, "Yeah, one of those dillies right there," and me and Bo just got to look at each other like, "Oh, this is too good," and so he can't stop saying it every time. He's talking about anything in like any type of account. He's always like, "Yeah, one of those dillies right there."
That's nothing. You've taught a lot of people from Texas, and I swear, people from Texas, they just make up their own words all the time.
They do. I speak Texas.
Yeah, skillywampus. I mean, like Scooty Boogie. Like I've heard some of the strangest things from. Wonderful, by the way. I love the personality of it, but Texas, they just have their own thing.
You don't mess with Texas. That's my adopted home state. No, I love the mentality of the Texan. They're free. They're cool. They're willing to work hard. It's a great independent mindset in Texas. It actually reminds me a lot of the Utah mindset of, very, very conservative from a financial perspective, independent thinkers. I really, really get down with Texas. But
so what do you think about, you think Obama's going in?
Going into Texas?
Have you not heard about this?
I don't know if he's welcome in that state.
Have you not heard the conspiracy theories?
No.
There's
caught up in that.
There's a lot of conspiracies in Texas right now, and Utah.
Jade Helm.
Quite a few. The Jade Helm stuff. Phil, come in and tell Matt all about this. You probably know more about it than I do. I just heard about it on the radio.
Yes, we have some special snowflakes down there. We even had a congressperson, one of the Congress members from Texas, raise a stink about it. There were some military exercises down in Texas called Jade Helm. They're just standard drills, whatever, and that's just what it was called. The congressional representatives were freaking out that the military was going to do some sort of overthrow and invade Texas. Like, how do you invade a state that already belongs to the Union? And as a representative of your government's Congress, where does that even come from? You say you don't trust the government or the military in that instance. It's been a complete clusterfuffle. And,
Let's go on this for a second. I'm not sure. I'm not sure that they would win that battle.
They would not.
I'm not sure because not only would every Texan go pick up arms, every crazy in America would pick up arms and go to Texas. Okay, but that is the dumbest thing I've heard in a long time. That
I'm going to go the other way on this. First of all,
wow.
I'm going to go the other way on this. Living in a world that right down the road has the largest NSA facility in the entire country. Knowing government the way I do, studying political history and philosophy and political structure, and thinking just as a critical thinker. No, I don't think they're invading Texas, but I understand the paranoia and the nerves of people who don't trust government. I
don't trust government. I don't trust government in any capacity.
Yeah.
But they're not invading Utah.
Well, what they'll tell you.
Where does that lack of trust come from, Matt?
It's because I grew up in Utah. We're taught healthy distrust.
Well,
of
that
all things government.
Well, that comes from the corruption up on the Hill, bro. Like on the federal level, where does that come from?
Well,
because I'm in Salt Lake as well. For our listeners,
corruption. Okay, obviously there's corruption in government, obviously, but I don't know if they'll ever be able to take a straw poll that will tell them that they'll have the public's confidence if they ever did anything like that. So I just don't see this. And here's the reality, guys. They don't need to invade anybody. They already own everybody. They don't need to do a damn thing. They already rake us over the coals with everything, and Americans won't do anything about it anyways.
Yeah.
So why would they need to do anything?
I got a question for you. I got a hypothetical, first of all. So let's say that we do invade Texas, and we also invade Michigan and the Minnesota and the Northern Lake states at the same time. Who's going to be a harder fight? Because I know some people up in those northern states that they have their guns and they would hunker down as well.
Texas would be the fight.
It depends on if it's in the winter, because that's like Napoleon invading Russia, and trying to take Stalingrad in the middle of winter. Not Stalingrad, but
bad timing. Bad timing on that one by old Napoleon Bonaparte there. Yeah, little man syndrome got him on that one. No, a tougher fight in the Union, man. Oh, let's take it a different route. Who are we going to offend today? Let's see. The easiest state to invade.
Dude, Florida. Has to be Florida.
It's going to be Delaware or
just skybomb pallets of meth
Florida.
In Florida.
Yeah. There we go.
Yep.
Yeah, we're not even going to drop leaflets this time. We're just going to airdrop methadone to people. Yep. That's the answer right there.
Yep, I
hope
agree.
Everybody, I hope our 50 listeners in Florida just got very offended by what Tim just said.
Well, the thing is, they live in Florida, so they know how it is.
Oh yeah, they would actually agree with us. Actually,
yeah,
they'd be like, "Yep. You know us well.
It's the only state that has its own special tag, like on news sites. When they say, "Oh, here's something from Florida," you go, "Oh, here comes something truly bat nuts crazy." So,
I know some people that are in Florida that are, let's just say, a little different.
And I want to go back on one of Phil's questions, because I don't know if Matt...
Tim, you hit your mute button on yourself, buddy.
Did it well enough. Yes, I did, and I was just going off on a beautiful rant, too. So what I was going to say is I'll go back on Phil's question a minute ago, because he says, where does that come from? I live in Utah. It's up on the hill, bro. It's that kind of thing. But I'm even thinking about it more from just a philosophical level, Phil. I don't even know if it's just about Utah. I think a lot of people distrust the nature of government, the level of government, because of the way they're constantly taking away freedom when they can. And anybody who follows financial markets, we bitch about the Fed all the time. I
agree with what you just said, Tim. I do. I agree. And you got some static on your mic there, Phil. I agree with what you just said in terms of they're constantly taking away freedom. But Tim, we're also constantly giving it away. Okay, that the rights of government is derived from people.
Yeah.
Okay, that dates back since the Magna Carta. Okay, that dates back even to some Roman policies, but it definitely dates back to our U.S. Constitution and our Declaration of Independence. And the rights of government, the power of government, is always derived from the people. And people in the last 15 years, people have been constantly given up their rights. And it's in the name of fear-mongering. It's in the name of protection. It's in the name of security. Because when we were hit on September 11th, okay, one of the moments in time that everybody will always remember where they were at. You know, it's like, okay, if there were certain moments in my life, like in my father's life, he will always say, you know, everybody knew where they were when Kennedy was shot, right? If there are certain moments in my life that I will always remember where I was, number one is September 11th, okay? I was walking into the law school and everybody was huddled around a TV. I was a 1L law student, and it was like, oh my God, everybody get home. And that came from the law school. Everybody get home. Well, that's number one.
Yeah, you were in a bigger city than I was. I was also. I agree with you 100%. Anybody who lived through that day that had consciousness at the time will never forget that day.
One of the saddest things that will ever happen in our lives.
Well, and I actually had to leave my apartment in the morning after the planes hit. And by the time I got to school, the buildings were coming down. Were already down. You know, and everybody's just like, yeah, nobody could even think, really. You're just sitting there trying to process. And I agree. But here's the thing. You take a tragic – we're all feeling it right now, Matt. Anybody listening to this that experienced that is remembering those feelings.
Worst thing ever.
But what happened from that is much – I mean, it's crazy to think about.
It is. But, okay, the second thing I always remember, all right, is when the Challenger exploded. Okay, when we were only in grade school at the time, but – you remember back then going up into space was still, even though it was, you know, a couple decades past when we started going into space, even at that time, it's like, oh my God, we're all, as a kid, we're all huddled around in school watching the Challenger go up, and we're watching this horrific accident, this space, you know, the shuttle literally just blow up, and 7 astronauts died on it. I remember that one. And then the third thing that everybody will always remember is where they were when OJ was acquitted. Okay? And I say that slightly tongue-in-cheek, but it's also true. Mm-hmm. And that's really when OJ was acquitted, that really became a part of our social mindset to a certain extent.
More than acquitted, though, don't you think the white Bronco?
The white Bronco. I remember when he was acquitted, though, because I was in high school at the time, mm-hmm. and we were watching. I mean, Tim, could you imagine in school today watching the Aaron Hernandez murder, the verdict? Okay, could you imagine that in high school today? We were doing that in high school back then. I was sitting in a computers class in Coach Todd Jeff's class, and we're sitting there and we're watching the acquittal of O.J. Simpson, and it's just like, oh my God, juice got off. When even as a child, we're like, there's no way he didn't do this, you know. And they're like, really? If the glove doesn't fit, you can't acquit, you know, Johnny Cochran and his legality of all that. But I remember that one too. But coming back to the September 11th attacks, over the last 15 years, you've had acts of Congress, acts of the NSA that have taken away personal freedoms in the name of security and protection in the United States. And I understand when you're hit like that, you go to the radical levels because you'll do anything not to get hit like that again, right? You'll do anything you can. But now, at 15 years later, we're in this environment where, you know, we're living in a terrorist state, and I'm not talking about the U.S. I'm talking about, you know, the mindset out there in the world where we have this constant war going on between, you know, the Western alliances and an Eastern faith, and it's getting to the point where, first of all, did we have to give up the freedoms we did? Does the NSA have a right to track every financial transaction in the world? Does the NSA have a right that if I want to go buy my wife a private item for me and my wife, that they can actually track that? I mean, that's utterly ridiculous to think that we have to give up these certain rights. And that's why I say, we've constantly just been giving it up. And that's why I say, guys, what I did about the U.S. doesn't have to invade anybody. Are you kidding me? We've already been invaded. We've already had our rights stripped from us over the last 15 years. And you know what? As long as people have Facebook and Twitter to post motivational or complain about government, that's all they got to do these days. And then they're satisfied. It's kind of sad.
We're starting to see pushback on that, actually. The first attempt to repeal the Patriot Act as well as the NSA carte blanche bill were introduced earlier this session. Of course, they didn't go anywhere thanks to the composition of the House, but we're finally starting to reemerge from the madness. I'm more of an optimist myself. I do trust the government on some fundamental level. It has its flaws and it has some broken pieces right now, but their more rational minds are starting to be elected and starting to come forward and trying to undo the damage from that mania we were in from 2001, because that is what the trigger was, and trying to get our rights and freedoms restored, such as the right to privacy and things like that. The director of the TSA, like the guy who helped create it originally, he's come out lambasting it several times. He's written a couple of books saying the TSA doesn't do jack crap. It just wastes money. It wastes people's time. Undo it. Get rid of it.
I travel literally every single week almost. Go through TSA almost every single week. Okay? And it is a joke. Mm-hmm. It is an absolute joke. And so I coming back to government a little bit, Phil, because I do agree with you. I do believe in government. I believe in the role of government. I think government has a role in society. I believe that in the social contract, before we were ever even born, we agreed that government has certain rights. And for government to have certain rights, we have to give up certain rights.
Yes.
But they've taken so much. And
yes.
So when I say I don't trust government, it's to the level of efficiency. I don't trust government to be efficient. That's number one. I don't trust government to moderate from a rights perspective of the citizenry of the nation. So, I think we agree on quite a bit there. But regardless of what the scenario is, guys, government. First of all, I will say this: it is not government's responsibility to take care of its citizens' retirements. That is not government's role. Okay, that is the individual's role. And coming back full circle here, in terms of the citizen, in terms of the American consumer, because it's not government's role to take care of them, they are not prepared for retirement. They're not. And it's almost to the point where it's impossible for the average American consumer to actually get prepared for retirement because they don't start young enough, number one. And when they get too old, they don't have enough money, so they just never invest in themselves. They never learn how to trade. They never learn how to invest. And then, when the market cycle hits them, everything kind of comes full circle. And it's a vicious cycle of they make a certain amount in 5 years, they lose another in 2 years, and that cycle is not going to change, which means people aren't going to be able to retire unless they do something about it.
You guys are depressing the shit out of me. All right, so...
I don't listen. We got there somehow. That's the Trading Justice podcast. By the way, you've been listening to the Trading Justice podcast presented by Tackle Trading. Go over there to Tackle Trading and get in the game one trade at a time. You know what, Tim? I have a personal motto: make money and change lives. Okay,
Yeah,
and that's what tackle trading can help people do: make money, change lives. And so, go check everything out that we're doing out there, from Gino's options report to Tim's commodities report to my forex report and the market recap videos and the strategies, and Steve Wong's theta fade coming up here in the future. We'll have a new little theta fade system that is all about selling options on a Friday, cash flowing every single week. And the assistant coaches shows, Dean Beckett, Vic Albert going out there doing their thing, and I think we're going to be expanding those. So once again, you're listening to Trading Justice, presented by the absolute finest in trading and trading education, tackletrading.com. That was a good drop.
I do like that drop. I want to go back on this for a minute, though, because I want to make sure I get one point out on all this conversation. Okay. No, they're not going to invade Texas. I don't believe it. No, they don't have to physically do it.
That is how we got on this topic. Yes. Invasion of Texas. God.
And yes, at some level, I trust that the lady at the DMV will fill out the paperwork and do her job for me. The idea of calling government one blanket thing is insane, though. See, I think we need to define that there are different levels of government, different interactions with government, different people in government, different levels of incompetence. Some of it goes to just an epic state. I mean, just
so instead of just saying, government is incompetent and inefficient, if I would have said the different levels of government have different levels of incompetency, I would have been accurate in that.
Absolutely. Because I'm sure there are tons of things in government that are necessary. The BLM rangers, or people that go out and work for the Forest Service, or even local police officers, or whatever it is. And I even know that police have had a bad rap lately, but that's not most police. I think that we obviously agree in the concept of the social contract. But one thing that always bugged me about the social contract, Matt, is that it's not really a contract if you have to be a part of it. You can't opt out of that sucker. It's
BS. I know some people that moved to – listen, I know people that went up to Alaska and you can't find them.
You've been listening to the Trading Justice podcast. If you've enjoyed yourself and think that the conversations and topics we've covered are important, help spread the word. Give us your feedback. 5 stars on iTunes, like us on Facebook, and follow us on Twitter. The Trading Justice podcast is proudly sponsored by tackletrading.com. Get off the sidelines and get in the game.